This is Oscar Bevis for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN. Adam, thanks for giving me a little bit of your time. Normally I don't have to graft too hard for interviews, but Jamie was doing your negotiating and it went from £10 to £10 a minute. So if you can, short and sweet answers.
Pay Jamie. You've got to pay Jamie. Don't try and knock Jamie.
I'm doing a runner after this, you do realise that. Yeah, like I said, thanks for giving me a little bit of your time. Felix, now, on the back of 18 months activity and considering his best performance was 3 years ago, I guess a lot of people might be writing him off going into a fight like this, but linking up with you, I guess kind of starting afresh. Are we going to see a dangerous Felix on Saturday night?
I think Felix is always going to be dangerous regardless of how long he's been out of the ring or who he's training with. One thing we know that Felix can do is that we know he can fight and we know he can punch. So he's a dangerous handful for anyone.
I saw you say to Matchroom that he's a luxury type fighter, a luxury for a trainer to have. Can you kind of explain why such?
A luxury in the sense that he's always early to the gym, always bandaged up before anyone else, trains as hard as anyone else, never shirks. Like in that sense, he's an absolute joy. Like I don't have to worry about him being late, not putting the effort in, he's low maintenance in that sense, and that's what makes it a bit of a luxury that he is a low maintenance fighter to work with.
That makes it sound like a lot of fighters aren't of that ilk.
Not every fighter is low maintenance, but that's the territory that we're in.
In terms of a fighter like Felix, who's been with a certain trainer for so long, had a certain number of fights in his career, when they come to you, I guess it's not about remodelling, it's perhaps just about tweaking. What was kind of your first 2 weeks like with Felix in perhaps trying to adopt what you know onto Felix, but kind of not go, by the way, this is you and you're a completely new fighter now?
No, it's really important to not try and dump your own ego on it as a coach and to work with the fighter that you've got. But what became apparent very quickly is that he's got this equal measure of aggression and cunning. And so that's what we played with. And it's not just about the training, it's about the conversations you have outside the gym or before training or after training. The conversations you have about understanding, all right, this is how we're going to try and do it. And then that feeding into sparring and then feeding into fights. I've just basically worked with what he is and just tried to encourage both sides of his game, and it's been fun. I'm not going to lie, it has been fun working with him.
What are you expecting from Tyler Denny?
Someone that has had to pay his dues, take his knocks, and stay in there to get to the position that he's at today, and to fight with the desire of someone that wants to stay in the position that he's earned the right to be in. So I do expect resistance. Someone that's prepared to go through whatever he's got to go through to get the win. But I also believe that cliche of that there are different levels, and it isn't just about how bad you want it and what you're prepared to go through, but there's also how good you are at certain things. And I think that's where the difference will play out.
With the cunning, aggression aspect that you mentioned, do you think there could be pockets of the fight, perhaps ones that Tyler will want to avoid, but could there be pockets of the fight where things really catch fire, do you think?
Oh, no, 100% this fight's going to catch fire. I think it will ignite and go cold, ignite and go cold. I think each round will probably be like that.
Have you spoke to Felix about a plan beyond this? Because, as Tyler alluded to, after the win against Denzel Bentley, if you would have asked people where they would have expected Felix to be now, you'd have expected minimum one world title on the shoulder. So have you planned after this, or is it, look, this is our main focus? Because I guess you've got to plan in advance. It's typical for a fighter's journey.
No, it's been a day-by-day thing in the gym, and the fact that it's a European title fight is significant, and that's enough. That is enough for now. What that leads to, it will be what will be will be. Like, winning takes care of a lot of things.
It's easy to skip over such achievements when you're a fighter that people just presume are going to win world titles in the future.
Well, I think some fans do, but when you're in the moment, when he's standing there looking at the fella holding the belt, and he knows that in 48 hours he's fighting him, that's all. That is the only reality that he has.
Mate, I can't wait. I really think it's going to be a good fight. Is there any news on Pretty Boy?
Yes, close to securing something, and hopefully hopefully something will get announced next week.
I mean, there's a lot of rumours circulating online. I'm not going to push too hard, but is it something big, like very big?
Yes, well, we think it's big.
Okay, I'm sure the fight fans will think it's big too. Something I did want to pick your brains on that we spoke about a couple of minutes ago before the press conference is, and obviously anyone mentioning this other than a select few are coming from an outside perspective, just the mindset of Tyson Fury post Oleksandr Usyk defeat. A video has surfaced that I guess people have perhaps made a little bit too much of, but there's a rematch that is 3 or 4 months away, his first professional defeat. Where do you think a fighter might be in that stage?
It could be anywhere, but fighters win and lose. In sport, you win and you lose, and men get drunk and have fun, and it's just that. But I don't read anything into that. It makes a good bit of clickbait and a headline and something to talk about, but I actually don't think it's anything worth talking about. I think the rematch will be better than the first fight.
And why is that?
Because Usyk has proved that he's prepared to take the fight to the bigger man, and Tyson will now know the tempo mentally, physically and emotionally that the fight has to be at to get the win, and I just think it will be a better fight.
How would you have approached, and I guess hindsight's a wonderful thing now, we've actually seen the pair share 12 rounds, but if you're in Tyson Fury's corner, how would you have approached fight number 1 with Usyk?
No, I'm not going to answer that question, because anything I say is just going to make it sound like, oh, you're only saying that because you saw the first fight. So I won't answer that question, because like smart-ass coaches don't sit well with me.
I guess you're right, it is easy to jump on after we've seen the pair share 12.
I'm not going to do that. Sugar Hill knows what he's doing. Andy Lee knows what he's doing. Tyson Fury knows what he's doing. It was a great fight. That was a close fight, right? And could have gone either way at the end. So, and it was tense all the way through, and it served up pretty much everything we hoped it would have done. I think it actually served up more than we hoped it could have done. So let's remember that. Forget about he had a drink and he lost. Remember what the first fight actually was. Look forward to the second one, because I think the second one's going to be better than the first.
Well, I was going to say, for my next question, you said it served up more perhaps than we expected. Was you going into the fight thinking there is stinker potential? Obviously people talking about Tyson getting behind the jab, and etc. Is it a fight that, before we saw it, had the potential to drop a little bit of a stinker?
No, I don't think necessarily a stinker, no. But I don't think any of us thought it would have been as entertaining. We haven't seen Usyk hurt like that by that uppercut. We haven't seen Tyson have his nose cracked and then almost get knocked out and stopped in the 9th round. We hadn't seen that. There was just so much drama and ebb and flow and satisfaction from the entertainment that they both served up in a fighting sense. I don't like. If you ask your question yourself, did you think that fight was going to be as good as it was? We didn't, right? But it was, and I genuinely think now, having seen that, I think the second fight will be better.
Bring on December the 21st. Joshua-Dubois is a fight that we're hearing will top September 21st. Riyadh season built at Wembley Stadium. I feel like there's been a little bit of a consensus that this might not be the right time for Daniel Dubois, but for a fighter of his age, he's been in a lot of top-level fights, arguably could have won his most top-level fight. Is this the right time for Daniel to take a fight like Anthony Joshua? I
think so, yeah. Like if you'd asked me that question before the Jarrell Miller fight, I'd say absolutely not, because he'd been stopped by Joe Joyce and been stopped by Usyk and hadn't proved that he can come through those moments in a competitive fight. With Miller, he was made to work hard the entire fight, because Miller soaks up everything you give him and stays there. So he had to work hard in that fight. And against Hrgović last time out, he had to get through a rocky start where he was eating a lot of right hands, come through it, impose himself, and take over, having gone through a bad spot. And I think the combination of the last 2 fights mean that absolutely it's the right time for him to take that fight. And also, even the way that first fight played out, the fact that Hrgović was landing right hands constantly at the start, and we know that AJ hits harder with his right hand, should mean that Dubois makes an adjustment and actually makes it harder for AJ to land that right hand early in the fight. So I think it's a good matchup, and it's an all-British matchup.
Yeah, I suppose it's easy for people to say that with the power Joshua possesses in his right hand, this is a dangerous fight for Dubois. if he is to make no adjustments. But I'm sure under Don Charles, they're kind of putting a perfect plan together to nullify what Joshua has.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely not a chance in hell that Don Charles isn't going to be pointing to those right hands that were consistently landing and saying to him, if that happens again with AJ, it's a different outcome. So I think there'll be a smarter version, as well as a version that now has won a fight where he had to dig deep and get through it.
Yeah, it's a pretty obvious weapon, I would say. So I'm pretty sure Don Charles will, like I said, allude to that in camp. Just one more thing. I have kept you for a lot longer, and this interview is costing me a bomb. Well, Jamie Collins doing all right with it. 3 minutes 30. The Riyadh season involvement now, of course, we've seen the shows in Riyadh. I know there's been minor criticisms over the fact that we're losing out in the UK. We're going to get a Riyadh season show, we believe, on September the 21st. There's one in Los Angeles with Terence Crawford. What's your take on it? Because the barriers that were put there by promoters, networks, have seemingly disappeared. So there are negatives, yes, but there has to be positives that outweigh such.
What are the negatives?
We're definitely losing main event fights in the UK that have gone to Riyadh season. For example, Nick Ball, Ray Ford could have been a brilliant UK fight. I haven't been myself, but I've heard the atmosphere isn't one to match that in the UK. But like I said, the positives surely outweigh those.
So, if you look, like, these are prize fighters. They fight for money. And the business of boxing, before the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia got involved, British boxing was probably as buoyant as it ever has been as a business. When you look at it on the global scale, the British boxing as a business package was as big as anything. And what the investment from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has done is multiply that hugely. So British boxing, I think, is as big as it's ever going to be as a business. And these are prize fighters that fight for money. That's the first thing that they need to be grateful for, and everyone needs to be grateful for. But secondly, that the fights that everyone wants to see that historically never happen, or if they do happen every now and again, seem to be happening as common practice now, right? And they're happening as common practice on the same night. It's overload. When you're watching these events, it's absolute overload in the matchups that we're getting. So we're getting spoiled, and to a certain point, we're actually, can we have a little bit less quality each night and spread that over the year, because 3 competitive fights or 4 competitive fights on one show is enough for us. So let's not be ungrateful and overlook that how healthy the state of British boxing is at the moment. Let's just enjoy the ride for as long as it stays like that.